Get my script. Okay, good morning, everybody. I convene this Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee meeting for January 28th, 2025 at 10 a.m. I'm going to read our little speech here and we'll get going. We'll wait. First, I'm going to do the call. Okay, I'll do that. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please be aware that other people may be able to see you and take care not to share your device's screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all devices and phones. For items with public comment, after committee members have finished their discussion on an agenda item, the chair will afford members of the public up to 3 minutes to speak. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and any affiliations. To give public comment, you must be recognized by the chair and speak through the chair. There's to be no crosstalk with others in attendance. In the interest in the efficient use of time, please, yes, speak through the chair. To be recognized for making a public comment, use the raise hand feature by clicking on the React tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then click on the raise hand button. When you've finished your comment, please click the lower hand button. It's important for me to note that CRAC isn't required by law to take public comment. We do so because we need your valuable input. We view public comment as a privilege, so please remain respectful in your comments and do not disparage other speakers or the members of this committee in your public comments. Okay. I have to do a roll call to make sure everybody's here. Is that right, Leah?
Yes.
Okay. Committee members, Doug Rose.
Here.
Gary Beller.
Here.
Sarah Boyce.
Here.
David Iverson.
Here.
Tim Brain.
Here.
Rachel Freeman.
Here.
Jen Carberg.
Here.
Joanna Roach.
Here.
Matt Fee.
Here.
Okay. Staff. Leah Hill.
Here.
Vince Murphy.
Here.
Okay. And we don't have any intended speakers, do we, Leah?
There's some members from the public that will be speaking probably on number 6, but we can get to that one.
Okay. All right. Number 3, public comment. This portion of the meeting as public comment is for any items that are not on this agenda. Does any public member of the public have anything to say that is not on the agenda? Please use the raised hand feature to let me know that you have something to say. Okay. Approval of the minutes?
There are no minutes.
There are no minutes. Okay. I like expediency. So number 5, downtown neighborhood flood barrier presentation by Leah Hill, Town of Nantucket Coastal Resilience Coordinator. Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Can you all see the presenter view? Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Get back to the beginning. All right. So today I'm going to give just an overview about the downtown neighborhood flood barrier, which is in the Coastal Resilience Plan recommendations number 2-2 and 2-6. They're both high priorities. Just to give a little bit of background, on the left is the NOAA sea level rise projections for Nantucket. This is based, you can find this on the Nantucket NOAA tide gauge website. And if you use the amount of 4.01 millimeters per year, which NOAA has with a 95% confidence interval, then from 1965, which was when the tide gauge was installed, to 2024, if you're just linearly adding that up, that is about 9.3 inches of sea level rise between that time. But that's not technically accurate of how to really determine the sea level rise on the island. In order to do that, you need to calculate through the 19-year tidal epoch to get the actual change in sea level rise. So that helps capture all the tidal factors. So statistically, you can get to the actual sea level rise projections only to 2015 doing it this way through the epoch. So while numerically this may be true, technically it isn't properly the proper way to evaluate sea level rise. I just wanted to remind the committee and anyone from the public that CRAC recommends that all town departments, boards, commissions, and committees, and any service providers, contracted engineers, and consultants are aware and need to use the NOAA high scenario sea level rise to accommodate current storm surge, as well as sea level rise in their decisions, deliberations, and planning. So CRAC put that forward to the select board this past summer, or maybe it's the summer before, with the new NOAA scenarios and projections, and the select board has accepted that. So the town is using the high sea level rise scenario for planning purposes. So essentially we're planning for the worst and hoping for the best. And in addition, within that recommendation, the select board has also accepted using the Massachusetts coastal flood risk model, which I'll go over later in the presentation. So the next couple slides are just going to be sea level rise projections for the downtown area, because that is where the neighborhood flood barrier is, or may be. And I'll go over the MCFRM projections as well, and then get into the concept of the downtown neighborhood flood barrier. So on the screen now is the NOAA sea level rise projections on a normal high tide for today. This uses the bathtub model, which essentially is all water rises equally, and we know that this is a very oversimplified approach. So present day, and then if we move up to 2040 with 1.15 feet of sea level rise, you can see that the creeks get inundated more on the high tide, and the water rises up more in the downtown area. Then you move further out to 2060, and you can see that the low-lying areas in Brant Point are getting inundated at high tide, and the roads in our downtown area that are closest to the water. And then it just, gets worse from there for 2080 with 4.36 feet. This would be daily high tide flooding. So that sunny day flooding, or that nuisance flooding, which is would be the most disruptive for our daily life. I just wanted to show here that using the Massachusetts coastal flood risk model to predict mean higher high water. So for 2030, which is the darker blue, 2050, kind of the medium tone blue, and then 2070 is the lighter blue. So mean higher high water is the averages of the daily highest high tide over that 19-year epoch, which is the national tidal datum. And you can see that as soon as 2030, Easy Street, the low-lying areas of Easy Street and Lower Broad Street are predicted to be inundated. And then also using that same model, this is for Washington Street. And this area here is the Francis Street Beach Improvement Project area. But this map is showing the dark teal is present day high tide. This darker tone here is 2030 mean high water. And then this area here that starts to inundate the road is for as soon as 2050 mean high water. And then all the lighter area that goes up further to almost Union Street is as soon as 2070. So the Massachusetts Coastal Flood Risk Model was developed by Mass DOT and the Woods Hole Group, and the state accepts this as the best available data for coastal flooding. This is not a sea level rise model, but it incorporates the state's sea level rise projections within the model. So for present day, or sorry, I should go back. So this model includes high tides, storm flooding, wave run up, sea level rise, future hurricanes, and nor'easters. Those are all inputs into the model to get these projections. It is a probabilistic model, and you can zoom in on specific properties to see what your risk is there. So this is showing a present day map of the downtown area, the creeks here, Brant Point. Oops, I don't know why that switched. And each color is associated with an annual exceedance probability. So that means that, let's use this darker blue, which is 100% exceedance annual probability. That means that in any given year, this area has a 100% chance of getting flooded during a coastal storm. The other colors are, I guess, lower chances for that area to get flooded during a storm. Then 2030, you can see that that moves in that 100%, that darker color. So at least, once a year for it to get flooded during a coastal storm. And then as the years go on, sea level rises, those inundation areas move further inland. Doug, I see you have a question. I think I'll just take questions at the end.
Oh, Liam, my only comment was we can't see the cursor if you're trying to use the cursor to show where you are.
Oh,
it's not
okay.
showing up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so from the risk assessment that was done before the CRP to inform the CRP, that showed that determined that the 5 priority risks within the downtown are the Steamship Authority, the Coast Guard Station, Stop and Shop, Highline Cruises, and National Grid. And as we all know, the Steamboat Wharf is the most essential and at-risk facility on the island. That risk assessment said that as soon as 2050, loss of service to the wharf during high tides, so that's daily, during high tides. Loss of service to Easy Street, we can see that as soon as 2030 at high tides. And high tide flooding on Easy Street has increased 6-fold in the last 40 years. So chronic inundation is described as flooding that happens 26 times a year that disrupts the community and requires mitigation actions. We first saw this inundation in 2010 on Easy Street, and it's been consistent every single year since 2016. The graph over here shows the different risks in billions for buildings and structures that are damaged during storm events or from flooding. And so you can see the downtown area is the most at risk and highest damages and losses at almost $3 billion. So what are we going to plan for that? That's where the downtown neighborhood flood barrier comes into effect. The CRP recommendation is a high priority and relies on private and public entities to work together to reduce flood risk and potentially daily disruptions within our downtown. So this concept is not completely fleshed out, and through public engagement and permitting agencies and talking to the property owners that are within that area, the downtown neighborhood flood barrier area, will help navigate what that will actually look like in the future. So this is just a starting, this concept is just a starting point to use while we can start resilience planning and really hone in on the different properties and what the best strategy is for that property. The barrier system includes a number of elements that will need to be implemented over time to provide comprehensive, effective flood risk reduction to the recommended elevation. The elements include raised roadways, so you can see that in red on this diagram, raised bulkheads along the wharf areas, Brant Point, and then reinforced dunes, at Children's Beach, and what we're hoping to do down at Francis Street Beach, and then berms as well. Deployable gates may be necessary in selected locations, but the overall approach recommends passive measures that are integrated with the existing built environment while maintaining access to key waterside facilities such as Children's Beach Boat Ramp, Steamboat Wharf, Strait Wharf, and the Town Pier. The approach can be implemented in phases over a period of 10 to 15 years in the near term. Phase 1 of the project is and should focus on reducing risk to the low-lying and highly vulnerable area along Easy Street from Strait Wharf to Steamboat Wharf. And as the project is implemented, stormwater management needs to be studied and addressed as well. So the overall goal of this recommendation is to reduce flood risk from frequent tidal flooding in the downtown core with benefits to essential public facilities and services. So the recommended height is 8 feet, NAVD 88. So again, that is not 8 feet at grade. It depends on what the elevation is where you are, but it's 8 feet, NAVD 88. And that is because it's just above the elevation of the projected mean monthly high water as soon as 2070. The design strategy should incorporate the ability to adapt the infrastructure to higher elevations in the future as appropriate. So the town is working on a memo or guidelines to recommend that design flood elevation for waterfront property owners within the downtown neighborhood flood area to ensure that all heights are consistent. Because as we know, if one area is lower, that's where the water is going to go. And we want the heights to be consistent so that we can get to the downtown area. We can go to work, we can get to the steamship authority, we can get all of our goods and services to the island with less disruption. So this is just another depiction of the downtown neighborhood flood barrier, showing it from a different viewpoint. Again, it has suggestions for road elevations, wharf elevations, berms, and nature-based solutions. And then this is another alignment too. So there's multiple alignments and alignment options. So you can either, the dash line, you can either go up, a butt to the water more, which is what we're planning for the Francis Street Beach Improvement Project. So that is one part of the downtown neighborhood flood barrier that is starting. And then also on Easy Street, the town and the Office of Coastal Zone Management are working on designs for this area. So Coastal Zone Management is a state agency. And we, as you know, we got a grant to look at Easy Street and determine what are we going to do there to reduce the potential for daily high tide flooding so that we can access the steamship authority undisturbed. I should mention the Washington Street or Francis Street Beach Improvement Project. That is a collaboration with the town and the land bank with funding and from Remain as well. So this map shows the geographic area in pink that would be incorporated into the downtown neighborhood flood barrier, and the blues indicate the coastal risk area. So and to orient you, the black little dots are existing structures that are within the downtown and Brant Point area. The dark blue is priority coastal risk area. So that means that these areas are at risk of coastal hazards as soon as 2030. And the Coastal Resilience Plan recommends that density should be reduced in this area. Large structural investments are not recommended due to prohibitive maintenance costs and limited benefits. The lighter blue here, here along Holbert Ave, parts of the Steamship Authority, those are high risk. So that is coastal risk as soon as 2050. And the CRP recommends that large structural investments are not recommended. Moderate risk is the teal area, and that is risk as soon as 2070. And the area approach should be to either adapt or protect against flooding. So again, the downtown neighborhood flood barrier would be, the concept would be to have these structures or critical facilities and roadways to and from the boat and downtown would be protected from daily flooding. All right, so that I'm going to stop sharing. That is, actually, I'll keep sharing in case people have specific questions regarding each slide, but that is the overall gist of the concept of the downtown neighborhood flood barrier. Peter, I'll take questions if anybody has any. You're on mute.
Yes, thank you, Leah. I just want to say one thing. I just think it's so important when you're talking about the barrier and you're showing the map to always emphasize, you know, a few slides back, you had the red line going along, and that I know because I'm the chairman, I'm on this committee, and I'm enlightened, is the raised road. But for the average person looking at that, they're going to think, oh my God, there's the barrier. I'm on the east side of that. I'm screwed. You know, it's important, you know, if you're going to show what we're doing for a berm, that needs to be emphasized too, that people need to see that so they understand that that's the protective barrier. That's, you know, the red line isn't, I don't want people to feel excluded. Anyway, that's my impression. And Doug, go ahead.
Thanks, Peter, and great work, Leah. This is always very helpful for me just to have another review. I know I've read this stuff before, but it's sometimes doesn't entirely stick. I had a question for Leah, and then maybe a more rhetorical question for everybody. And that the first question was just on priority coastal risk areas. Leah, I don't recall. Is that in effect essentially 2030?
Yes.
Okay, so priority is 2030, high is 2050, and moderate is 2070.
Yes, and then low coastal risk is after 2070.
After that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is a rhetorical question or not. Maybe someone has a direct answer to this, but I've never been 100% sure that whether it's the bathtub model or the FRM, do those take into consideration groundwater? Because it feels to me like that could be the elephant in the room. We could be building seawalls effectively that keep the ocean out, but don't prevent the rising of groundwater. And I don't know if anybody has the answer to that one. That's all I had. Thanks.
Did you want to answer, Leah?
Yeah, I can answer.
Okay.
So no, groundwater is not included in either the NOAA bathtub model or the MCFRM. In order to determine groundwater risk, you really need to hire a hydrogeologist for your particular property. But I will say that, you know, we had Mark Willett from the water company on a couple months ago, and they're working on a model for groundwater and how sea level rise is projected to, you know, either change the flow of that or bring that closer to out of the ground. So no, we don't have right now, we do not have a model for groundwater.
Thanks, Leah.
Okay, thanks, Leah. Go ahead, Joanna.
Sure. So, Leah, this is really great. I think that it really helps to visualize how all of this impacts us on the schedule in which we're anticipating it. My question is, how does this align with the financial goals? And is there a way to tie this to dollars, right? So that we're looking at maybe another page where these colors that you're showing says, like, there's a key, and maybe it says, all right, priorities, I'm just giving you an example. Priorities 11, 12, 13, and 14 are in this moderate risk. They're assigned to years 2035 to 2045, and it's $20 million. Like, that kind of a slide, I think, would be super helpful. And then going back to what Peter said about the red line, I really agree, because I didn't understand immediately that that was the road. So the second question I have about that is there a time frame for the road, and is there a cost or financing mechanism for the road that's being discussed, or where are we in that process?
Can I answer, Peter?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Joanna, so to answer your first question about putting dollar values on the different risk areas, that was done in the risk assessment, and I can send you that.
Okay, can I, so I'm saying that, can we take that and put that in this so
Yes.
that when people read this, there's a direct correlation between what they're seeing and how much it's going to cost?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then your second question, as far as the road, which, let me bring it. Is this the slide that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to reiterate that this showing Washington Street raised, Commercial Street, that is just a concept. And so that doesn't mean that that is actually going to happen. These are ideas of jumping off of what you could do. So for example, instead of trying to raise Washington Street, what we're doing at the Francis Street Beach, this intersection is this alignment here. So instead of road raising here, we're going beachside here, because it's more nature-based. It'll cost less money than elevating the whole road, and we can stop 2 flood pathways that come in and inundate that intersection in this one project. But yeah, in the CRP, there, as far as the whole build out, the downtown neighborhood flood barrier, there is a high estimate and a low estimate for that. I'm looking right now. The high estimate is $170 million with 320 million in estimated benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thanks, Joanna. Go ahead, Christy.
Christy, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks, Leah. This is great. Very helpful. I just got a comment. I want to just touch on Doug's comment about the groundwater, and I would just like to, or for us to, keep that in the forefront, because I think that's a very valid point. We don't have like wave action in the harbor, so we're really, the berm will, I don't think it's going to hold back all the water, because I do think the groundwater is 100% a factor, because I have some clients in that neighborhood. I'd just like to keep that notion in the forefront as we move forward over the years and continue this discussion. because it might mold how we do things. And then my comments, as far as Brant Point, when do we start the discussion to homeowners to, maybe move their homes or decommission? Because I think that, we're not going to be able to do the companies on island that move houses are not going to be able to do this all at once. So I think that it would be in our better interest and for planning purposes to start that conversation sooner, so that homeowners have time to plan. And I think also, with raising roads, I do think we're sort of just encouraging houses to stay longer when there's going to be more significant impacts. And then as far as raising roads, I do think that, say, Lower Easton Street towards the Coast Guard station, we all know is a significant area of roadway obstruction with, water. And so I'm wondering maybe we look at that road sooner than later for maybe raising it. And that can be like a test sort of project that we do sooner than later, not push it out till, 2040 or something. But I think we all know that road would be certainly a good test model to see how raising a road works, instead of not doing it and then relying on it, but then we find that there's some major flaws that we haven't really thought about. So those are just a few comments.
All right, thanks, Christy. I think our conversation on Brant Point is going to start at this meeting because we have a representative from the Brant Point Homeowners Association in attendance, and I think she'll have some things to say. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Doug's comment about groundwater. And I agree with Christy and Doug that we need to keep it in mind. I had a homeowner down in the Washington Street area showed me the groundwater. He said, we don't need to spend a lot of money on fancy consultants and this and that. And he opened a hatch, and the groundwater under his house is, sort of 6 inches away from the height. And he said, and it's a dry season. He goes, sometimes it's all the way up to the top. And so it's already there. And I think some of the concerns that we're hearing from the Washington Street people is that the groundwater is as much of an issue as the flooding, and it's kind of what leads to it. So some of their concerns is that, that we have that part really figured out. They like the dune and they like that it might be blocking water from the harbor, et cetera, but they're worried that it's just going to come up from below and anyway. And so I think that that's, kind of what Doug was talking about. So I think it's good for us to be thinking about that, because it's an important point of, the Washington Street project, and it's what people there are experiencing. So, and then the numbers of all of this are, just, we have to figure out how we're going to do this cost effectively, because it's too much money. And that's, I'm hearing it just about the Island Home and some of our, capital right now. We really, we're not going to solve it. This group isn't going to solve it, but we really, as a community, need to figure out how do we not spend $2 million for a shed, and that's what these prices, these are $2 million for a shed prices that we've been quoted. We've got to find a way to do this so that the taxpayers and the people can afford it. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Fee. I just want to say that it's not just the town. It should be the individual property owners making their own preparations. Anybody who's decided to stay along Washington Street might take the lead of the Frisbees next door and other people in the area and protect their homes by putting them on pilings so that they are above the floodplain. Just my thought. Go ahead, Gary.
Thanks, Peter. Couple of comments on these subjects. In view of the suggestions here that we should be concerned about the groundwater, I want to remind the committee that we also have a stormwater problem because of the amount of water that flows down from the cliffs down to the Brant Point area, to Children's Beach, stuff like that. And, you know, there's been a few studies over the last few years showing that that is a problem and that should be addressed to try to change the flow of that water so it doesn't continue to flow down right where it is now, which exacerbates the problem. And I mean, I went to the meeting that the sewer department had last summer. I know Leah was there as well, but I haven't seen any progress on figuring out how to redivert the stormwater so that it isn't going down to the Children's Beach area, exacerbating the problem. That's the first thing. Second thing, with respect to, Christy mentioned Brant Point and suggestion people moving their homes. Most of the people down there, we don't have places to move our homes. The lots are smaller. And that reminds me that, you know, our number 2 or 3 priority was to focus on programs where homeowners in these high-risk areas can get paid something by giving up their homes. In other words, we've seen a few experiments on the East Coast already where some kind of foundations were set up so that people who are willing to, who understand they couldn't keep their home forever, would be getting some kind of a benefit, whether it's a tax benefit or not, by giving up their homes and having some ability to perhaps buy and build elsewhere on the island. That was the second thing. Third thing is, when I look at that Massachusetts model and I think about 2030 flooding Washington Street so often, I'm saying it's already 2025 and we don't even have a plan set to save that. That's a short time. It's really a short term that we have to actually deal with that. And the clock is ticking and 2030 is coming soon. And I think we really have to figure out how to get that thing moving at a breakneck speed. That's my last comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gary. Very much appreciate I guess I'm someone from Brant Point on our committee and speaking. It didn't come out well. Okay, go ahead, Vince.
Thank you. I'm sure Leah was going to say this point anyway, but there's 2 existing projects, the Easy Street project and the Francis Street Beach project. Groundwater is a consideration in both of those projects. It's something that we learned. It's not something, we need the results of the study that the water company is generating, but we're already looking at it. We're already planning for it. There's design elements within both projects where there would be something to the effect of, say, a sheet pile that goes down into the ground, and that would alleviate groundwater flow. So it's not a perfect answer because it would take a long time to join all of this up, but it's something that's already working its way into design elements of existing projects. It's not something we're forgetting. It's a clear and obvious issue. Every time we talk about one kind of water, people love to bring up another kind of water, like storm water, every time. And it's very good because we've also incorporated stormwater into both of those projects. And we have developed extremely close ties with the stormwater manager, and he's effectively a part of everything we do now. So anytime we're planning a project, looking at a project in the downtown area, there's a stormwater manager that we bring in, try and get their input, try and look at the drainage issues for storms. We're doing it. It's there. It's not straightforward. It's very complicated, and it's going to take quite a bit of time to work out. But I do love the fact that people keep reminding us of these things. It shows the huge interest that we have taken on board and will continue to, and please keep shouting and waving these things. But I want everyone to understand and recognize we're working on it. It is incorporated and it's coming along. It's just going to take time, and everyone wants to protect their neighborhood. We get it, we hear it, and we're working towards it.
Thank you, Vince. Are there other comments? Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. I just wanted to just touch on what Christy was saying about the Brant Point area and talking to the homeowners to move their homes and all of that. Right now, the town doesn't have any legal way to make people move their homes out of these areas. There's a process for, if the house is uninhabitable, or if, the septic system is exposed or something like that. But I just wanted to make that clear that the town is not making you move your house right now. I have been working on developing a retreat and relocation program that's island wide. And so I think what will come out of that will be some more clarity around like the processes and the procedures if someone wants to move their home in risk areas and all of that. So I just wanted to clarify that point. But it is important to speak to the private property owners and make them aware of what their potential risks are so that they can take steps on their property to mitigate those risks.
All right, thank you. Are there other comments? Okay.
I'm having a hard time raising my hand. Can I say something? I'm sorry.
And who are you?
I'm Tony Robinson, the new incoming president of Grant Point Association, Neighborhood Association.
Okay, Leah, are we going to wait for stakeholders after number 6?
Thank you.
Or is this where we're going to do it?
It's up to you, Peter. So if there's a specific question about the presentation, I'm happy to answer that. But if not, then maybe you want to move to number 6 to open the discussion about the downtown neighborhood flood barrier with the stakeholders, which Tony is a stakeholder for.
Thank you.
So maybe we'll just segue right to this discussion, and then we can open it up to other stakeholders. So go ahead, Tony.
So I just did want to clarify that we are early in our stages of understanding the issues ourselves as an association, and we are very engaged with Libby and Vince, and we've been really working hard with Leah to understand. We're just beginning the process, but we're very engaged and very interested in beginning that process. And it is a delicate conversation, obviously, for all of us, because there's a lot we don't know. And so we really appreciate this content and material and research and science and all the things that this team is working on. But we are the newbies, I think, if you will, in terms of really understanding what needs to be communicated to our community, how we could create a good functioning partnership, a private-public partnership with the town to be able to be as constructive and as to accelerate the work in the most efficient way, so that we can get all the homeowners who can impact this and try to make a difference engaged and involved and activated. So while we haven't yet really been able to do anything, I would just like the committee to know that we're very appreciative of the work you're doing, but we're also very engaged to try to see how we can help leverage that.
Okay, Tony, you own a house down in Grant Point?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this of each one of the stakeholders that speaks, and hopefully you'll have responses for me. What has your flooding experience on your property been in the past? What preparations have you already done to protect your property? What are you doing now, and what are you planning for the future? You specifically, all 4 of those.
Great.
And if you want me to repeat them, I will.
No, please ask me again if I forget one of them. But we live at 66 Easton, which is the corner of Easton, North Beach, and South Beach. So we are directly across from the new rain garden that was put in at the corner. When we first moved in three years ago, we saw excessive flooding in that corner. It was sometimes almost impassable. When the rain garden went in, after the rain garden, we have had no flooding at all, even on very bad 3 or 4 days sequencing of rain where other areas have been inundated. We were draining very well. One of the things I've personally done is whenever I see the drains need to be cleared, if I can't clear them myself, I will literally call the plumbing department, and they will come right over, and they've been excellent at coming over and clearing any of the clogged areas, because they obviously can't know when that starts to happen, but we are local and close to it, and we can see. we have not done anything yet to impact our house except remove pipes that are too close to the ground and replace them with PVC so that they burst is not as bad. We've done insulation. We are trying to seal the house, but it's over 100 years old. So it's very hard to seal an old house that doesn't have all the amenities of a new property. We like the old house, so we would rather not take it down and replace it with a modular house, although that's what a lot of people are doing. So we're in the conundrum, but I think we're committed to do whatever we need to do, and hope to. That's the reason this particular topic is the reason I joined the Brant Point Association, is because I have a science background and I'm really interested in what can happen and what we could do, and have traveled a lot. So I've seen other parts of the world where they do things that are very aggressive with water management. And we lived in Colorado for 6 years during the COVID, and that period gave us a lot of opportunity to learn about water and piping and water movement underground. So it was quite interesting. So,
All right, thank you, Tony. And what you said about the rain garden being a success in helping with the draining during the flooding, keep in mind, that's an important thing that we would hope to convey to the residents in the Francis Street Beach and Francis Street and Washington Street area, as we consider a similar installation there.
Well, I have my before and after pictures, so I can certainly share those. It was very interesting to watch the installation of it and to really see during the times when there's excessive rain. It's making a big difference.
Yes, good. Hold on to that stuff and keep sharing it.
Yeah.
Are there other property owners, other people in the area, Brant Point or otherwise along the waterfront, stakeholders that want to make a comment? Okay, Caroline Baltzer.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you the data that you'd asked for about property and current experience of flooding and mitigation. I'm at 66 Hulbert Avenue, and we have not experienced, in the 59 years that I've been alive, we've not experienced any flooding on this property, which is across the street from the water. I purchased a house through Housing Nantucket that was being demolished across Wall Street and dragged it over to the back of this lot and raised it up as high as possible. Our old house, which was moved across the street in 1956 to this property, that was already put on pilings in 56, fortunately, not as high as the new house, but pretty high. But again, we haven't experienced any flooding on our property. Although there's usually a big puddle out in front on Hulbert Avenue when there's a storm. And I think that's all you asked for.
What do you have plans for the future?
Well,
in terms of preparations.
Yeah, I live here year round in the new back house, which is winterized. And I am learning about the whole thing right now. So while I don't have trouble in my Jeep getting off Brant Point, because I can go up the cobblestone hill, so I don't get flooded down here. Last time I got flooded out in my Cherokee was up on the cliff on Cliff Road. So I think it's a bigger problem than just my house.
Right. Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to make a comment? Okay, what do I do now, Leah? No one wants to talk. Go ahead, Leah.
I just wanted to make an announcement that in the committee's packet, there was another presentation by NIR, that will be tabled until another meeting. So I know that we have some folks here from NIR and the Island Energy. So thanks for attending, and we'll move that to another agenda. And if you do want to speak about, past flooding experiences or resiliency efforts, now's your time. It's really just an open discussion with stakeholders, and we'll be having more of these meetings. So feel free to jump in if you want. And I know I see some other people from the public as well, if they would like to comment.
And Leah's correct. This is not your only chance to talk. We have our meetings twice a month, and we want to engage the public as often as possible. We would also, well, this is a personal thing, but I think the committee agrees with me. We need better coverage from our local media so that you all know what's going on. You can watch us on YouTube. You can find out about our meetings and attend, but the broader island public needs to know what's going on. So if you feel comfortable reaching out to the Current and the Inky, request that they cover us on a more regular basis, then more people can be on board. That's my elevator speech. Anybody else have comments?
Peter, I can comment. I also
Who
live
is
in
this?
Grand Point. This is
Who is
Andy
this?
Reinhardt.
Okay, Andy.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I don't know how to raise the hand on this thing, so I couldn't find it.
Down on the bottom, if you bring your cursor all the way down,
Yeah.
you'll see all the way on the right, you'll see a little heart and it says react underneath that. You click on that, you'll find all the controls just for the future.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
I also live in Holbert. We've been there for 3 generations. I live at 11 Holbert Avenue. We underwent a renovation a year ago. Just completed a year ago, and we did raise our house during that. So we did 2 things. We moved one house from Sandy Drive, which is just before Willard, down to the 11 Holbert Ave property when we sold that lot. That was raised up at the time, and then we did a renovation of the existing 100-plus-year-old house at 11 Holbert, and also raised that up to comply with all the code and regulation. And we have not had flooding on that property historically. When we were located at Sandy Drive, we did have more significant flooding down there, which is across the street and backs up to the wetland there. But now we just own at 11. The houses are raised, but we have not seen significant flooding on that property, but we have prepared for it for the future by elevating the house.
Thank you. I believe I had seen that house being worked on and raised up there. So good job on that. Doug, do you want to say something?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. My question, I guess, maybe for Andy and for any of the other members of the public that have had the experience of raising their homes. I am curious if there are regulatory requirements or limitations that have made that process difficult. Are you facing, I assume HDC's got some regulations that might be pertinent to that. I just was curious what your experience was going through the process of getting that permitted. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for ours at 11 Holbert. I mean, I think the process is complex, just because, yes, you have HEC, you have Concom, you have all the standard regulations, but those would really apply to anybody. So it doesn't necessarily pertain just to elevating the house and doing a new foundation there. It really just, because we're on the water side, we have the sand dune in front of us, so we had to maintain a setback, even though the existing house is already there. So there was a lot of regulatory hoops, but I think those are just Nantucket. And not necessarily because of where we are. I think we had some more environmental concerns because you have to make sure there's no wetlands. There's the sand dunes that you have to ensure you're set back from. But yeah, it was challenging, but I don't think just tied to raising the house.
All right, thank you, Andy.
I can also say something about that.
Okay, go ahead, Caroline.
Thank you. When I moved the new house in 21 over to the lot, I had asked if we could raise it up higher than what it is. And I was told that I can't remember if it was a building regulation or what exactly it was, but that I couldn't raise it up more than where it is now. So there was a limit, despite our wanting to get it up another couple of inches. So that's one thing. And the other one is, I know that when we've I looked into raising the old house a little bit at the same time, because I thought maybe I could get a better price if I did them together. The problem is, since we have an old unimproved house as our front house, which we like that way, open studs, if you go over a certain amount of money, you trigger, I'm sure more of you know more of what I'm talking about than I do, but you trigger the necessity to bring things up to code and other kinds of improvements that one might not want. So that is why I didn't raise Grey Goose, our 100-year-old house, up any more than it is, although it is still on pilings, fortunately.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Vince.
Thank you. Caroline raises an interesting point, and I've been looking for evidence, I suppose, or some better way of expressing this for quite some time. One of the things in the CRP is about design flood elevations and freeboard, the height we can get to get the first floor elevations out of flood zones. And this is going to become something that the committee might have to take up in the next couple of years. It's complicated. It will be the kind of thing that would be worthwhile over the next 6 or 12 months for the committee to talk to the HDC and the planning boards jointly or together, something to that effect, to understand what their limitations are so that we can work on a better local regulation. So HDC looks after height and appearance, planning board and zoning play into height regulations in a different way, but also there's the whole FEMA side of things for the regulatory height, the minimum height, say for whichever flood zone, if you're in a velocity zone or a flood zone, what height you have to get to. So there's another layer we have to work on and work into it to see what design flood elevation we can get to and what freeboard we can include beyond the design flood elevation to give people more longevity. It's something that was discussed in the CRP that might be worth picking up from at least an investigation point of view before moving to thinking about how it might be regulated or to change regulations or a recommendation of any sort. So it could be something for the committee to investigate quite well.
All right, thank you, Vincent. Are there further comments, either from committee members or from the public? Okay, seeing none, I pose this question to the group. How often do we want to continue this discussion on the downtown neighborhood flood barrier at future meetings of CRAC? Do we want this as a regular agenda item to see if there are comments? I mean, to me, it's been very, very informative and useful to hear from members of the public on what they're dealing with. It informs what we're doing, what we're moving toward. So what do the committee members think? Well, I'll go to Leah first, and then I'll go to Tony and then Jen. Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. Just a staff recommendation, I would recommend putting it on, having a focus meeting, maybe quarterly to start, or twice a year. And then as stuff progresses, then it could be more frequent.
All right, thanks. I was going to say more frequent than that, but because we may not get that many people, but go ahead, Tony.
So sorry, I just had to unmute myself. So thank you. Yes, I think this has been very helpful to us. And since we're sort of a newbie at the table, I'd love to be able to know that we can continue to learn from what you all know far more than we do. I also think it would be helpful to give us an opportunity as a community and as a neighborhood association to advocate a little bit more too for ourselves directly to you, because you guys are the decision makers on how you're going to use the funding. One of the things that we'd like to do at Brant Point is really get more data on how many visitors we get to our neighborhood. Certainly being being able to visually see everybody from my second floor go down North Beach when they're going to the 4th of July celebrations or to the Pops, or even now to the new beach that's going to be put down by the land bank down at the end of near Galley. I think we'd really like to know how many visitors we support, because not every neighborhood is the same. And I sort of see us as an extension of town, because we're such a destination location down to the Brant Point Beach, down to the Coast Guard station for the Halloween activities. I mean, there are so many people really stroll too around in terms of using the neighborhood as a way to ride bikes and to park their car off season. And I mean, I think our neighborhood, while certainly I can understand the idea of people thinking that people should abandon their homes, or we should be sort of letting Brant Point kind of go out to sea. I would really like to be the advocate. And I know that our board is supportive of this, that getting more data to you on the actual number of visitors. I mean, estimated 10,000 people come to the Pops, or 10,000 people come to the 4th of July. So just to have evacuation routes, and just to make sure that we have the infrastructure to be able to support the Coast Guard station. Those are the types of things that we're asking ourselves, especially in light of what's been happening in California and in other parts of the world where these communities really didn't feel prepared. So we're putting together a task force of really being able to look at our community safety, and we see this flood risk as part of that. So I think having more direct connection with you and you hearing our concerns and what people are actually thinking, I think that's what Leah has been so great at hearing from us individually, but I think as more of an organized effort with real facts and data would give you more ammunition too when you go to think about how you're going to be allocating funds for, the flood mitigation project over the long haul.
All right, thank you, Tony. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thanks, Pete. This has been really interesting to hear, additional viewpoints beyond just what we heard years ago when we put the CRP together. It's great to be revisiting this and getting just more information. I guess my question is, you were asked about how often to do this. I think it's great to keep bringing it up as long as we're having targeted conversations. I know that Washington Street has some things moving forward, Easy Street, but what I'm wondering is, are there other efforts that are moving forward that we should be learning about, or where are we on the timeline, I guess, Leah, as far as implementation of the different, I know not all the pieces of the flood barrier in these areas is on the town, and you have the presentation from NIR that we're postponing, and there were some things that they were looking at. I'm wondering, are there other pieces or other groups that are working on stuff that we're going to want updates on as we're learning more about the area and continuing the conversation?
All right. Do you want to respond to that, Leah?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So Jen, that's what the intention of the focus meetings are for the downtown neighborhood flood barrier. I reached out to a lot of the private property owners who I have contacts with. Obviously, I don't have contacts for every waterfront property owner within that downtown neighborhood flood barrier area. But the hope is that they come to these focus group meetings and we chat about, what their plans are, what they're hoping to do, what they have been doing, so that we're all on the same page, and so that we can have that public-private collaboration to ensure that we can reach our downtown and we can, get to the ferries and off the ferries. So that's really why I wanted to start this conversation. As far as like the full build out, the CRP says the target implementation year is 2050 based on the risk assessment, but as we know, risks change. So that might get moved up further or pushed back more, but really just to get everyone at the table and to have a discussion so that we ensure that, if homeowners on Brant Point want to elevate their bulkhead, that we can have that discussion and recommend what the design flood elevation should be, so that, you know, the roads aren't getting flooded and they're also protecting their property.
Okay, good. Thanks, Leah, for answering that and explaining. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I think this is a terrific meeting, and I think more of them is a great idea. I don't know how frequently. I wonder if I can ask Leah, are there projected timetables for Easy Street or Francis Street projects? And that's part of the question. And the other part is, I think more frequent updates on those projects would be useful too, if there's anything to update. So sort of a combined question there for Leah.
You want to answer that, Leah?
Sure. Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
So Tim, for the Easy Street project, that will be, right now we're refining the alternatives for it. So the design alternatives, and I'm planning a community virtual open house probably like mid-March to get feedback on those. And our grant ends on June 30th of 2025. So by that time, we need to have whatever preferred alternative to 30% design. And then we need to acquire funding or a grant to bring that to 100% design and permitting. So as far as construction goes, we also need to get funding for construction. So we are starting the process. It's a long process. So, you know, construction probably couple years out at least, because we got to get through the permitting and all of that. As far as Francis Street Beach, same thing. 30%, that preferred alternative will move to 30% design, probably around spring as well. And then again, goes to 60% design, 90% design, or 100% design, permitting, and then construction.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Leah. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks. Yeah, my comment was based on your original question about this meeting frequency or this type, and I think this has been really valuable as both hearing the details from Leah about the area, but then hearing from homeowners. I do caution with having too many frequent meetings with particular neighborhoods, because we are an island-wide community committee, and while we have particular projects that are in any one given neighborhood, you know, like you just were saying, Leah, Washington Street, Easy Street, and Francis Street, you know, there's and so there's concentration where the projects are. We don't want to then limit our communication with Matticat or, you know, people that live on Pulpus Road or any other projects we might have. So I appreciate the quarterly, you know, for a targeted meeting. But then, of course, our meetings are open for everyone every other week. So if there's additional information, or if like that's the particular meeting that a homeowner can attend, I think we would welcome that information during public comment for additional information about any improvements people are making to their homes, any observations. I really love, Tony, what you were saying about your own personal observations of how the rain garden has been effective. Like those kinds of stories are really important for us to hear. And of course, you know, the land bank and constructing that would be, I'm sure that's useful for them to know. I think anyway, so I just, you know, want to kind of keep in mind that we're always here. And even if it's not a targeted meeting, that we can, you know, take that information from people. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. Go ahead, Joanna.
Sure. I had a question in particular about, first of all, I agree with the meetings. I think we could do them quarterly and that would be great. But I'd love to hear from other homeowners in some of these targeted areas, like people from Washington Street, right? Or people from Petrol Landing and some of those specialized areas where the water is so close to their houses. They're like on top of the water. That'd be great. And then my other question was about Francis Street Beach project. So where because I constantly drive us back to the money part of it. Where are we in the financing of that and in the queue for the town? Like how far away is that approval process before it goes to, say, a town meeting vote?
Thanks, Joanna. All right, I guess that's you, Vincent.
I don't know about the second part of Joanna's question, but the first part about the meetings with different groups. In the before times, as they say, there was a previous chair of the committee tried to set up meetings with different groups at different times. We've had them with we've had a Bram Point focus meeting, I think, in the past. We had a Madikit one, then we had a Smiths Point Village specific one. We had one with the people in Sconset. We tried to, but I don't think that we ever did one for the Surfside area. We tried one for the Monomoy area that we couldn't get off the ground, not enough people to come and comment. So this has been a thing that has happened in other areas of the island to have focuses, and every time it's been massively productive. So glad that we're getting back to it with the Bram Point area and the downtown area. So more luck to you. The other part of the question, sorry, Joanna, I don't have a good answer. We'll work towards trying to figure something out for that.
All right, thank you, Vince. Do we have other comments? Seems like we're pretty much talked out on this, but go ahead, Garrett. You're muted.
Yep.
You're muted, Garrett.
Yep, thanks, Peter. I just think that from time to time, and I don't know, remember how often she does it, Leah starts these meetings showing our list of priorities. And I think that's a practice that we should continue to do that, because we do have priorities, and part of our job is to make sure that the particular areas that are our number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, that they get the kind of attention. Otherwise, they shouldn't be our priorities. And I know Leah has, from time to time, started our meetings with the list that shows where we are in each of the projects. I think it's important for us to continue to do that so that we can continue looking at whether we are making progress, as we should, on our top priorities.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Gary. Any more comments? Okay, seeing no more comments, thank you, everybody. Thanks to the members of the public who shared their stories with us. We'll take as many as we can get. So do we feel that quarterly is what we want to do for this discussion? How does the group feel about that? You can put your thumb up or nod your head or whatever, and then we'll. Okay, quarterly it is, Leah. Okay.
Peter,
Doug,
I had one other thought just to add to this mix, and that is I was really excited about the prospect of hearing from NIR. And so if we can get them back, I hope we don't have to wait a quarter to have them come and share what they had to talk to us about. Right?
Yeah,
if we can get them next time, that'd be great. Thanks.
They're coming back. There's there's some discrepancies of their presentation that need to be revised. And they're gonna I'm sure they want to get back as soon as possible. So yeah, we're not forgetting about them. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, just so people know, the select board and Vince and Leah, we've all been asked a bunch of questions from Madikit. They seem to have concerns and a bit of a campaign of when are we gonna, what are we gonna do there and when are we gonna do it? And so I think, and that's just an update for people. I know there's a response going to Madikit. They've lost, I don't know, 20 feet of beach in the last year or two, and and are looking at it saying, what are we gonna do? So this is, this is dynamic, and the areas will be coming in at different times. Thanks.
So thank you, Matt. And that makes me think that for each quarter that we do this, Leah, we focus on a different part of the island that's vulnerable. And that way we're telling those people, yes, we're paying attention. Yes, we have these things going on. We want to hear from you. Gives those people a chance to get their thoughts together, and hopefully you get good attendance. Go ahead, Tony.
Is there such a thing as a homeowner's guide to Nantucket's recommendations for what we should be doing to mitigate these issues? Because I think one thing that would be very useful, we have an annual meeting in July, and having somebody speak and present to our team or our audience, we have a very good attendance rate usually, and be able to provide them with, here's what the plan is for Brant Point. Here's what you can do as a homeowner. I think a lot of people don't seem to really know what to do. And the questions that I get are all about, when is this going to happen? When is that going to happen? But I think that sounds like what you want the audience to know, which is what they can do to fill their land, or to raise their house, or to winterize, blah, 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 or move if they really need to know when the timeline is. That would be very helpful. So if somebody could attend that meeting with us, that would be very, very helpful.
Okay, Tony, I'm going to give you the Leah in just a minute, but this is something that we produced, that Leah produced. I don't know if you can see it. Okay, you can get that from Leah, but go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. Yes, Tony, I have given lots of presentations to different homeowners associations just answering that. So going through the coastal resilience plan for that particular neighborhood or area, talking about the recommendations, the risks there, and then ways for them to mitigate the risks. So happy to connect with you and give that presentation and discussion at your annual meeting. We also have quite a few brochures that I'm happy to send along as well, that go into some of that detail as well.
And also, within the coastal resilience plan, there is a whole section on what homeowners can do to help themselves. Section 7, is that right? Or did I get it wrong? But either way, there's a whole section for homeowners if you read the plan. And then hopefully you can get, everybody else on Brant Point to read the plan, and we'll be off. Go ahead, Gary.
Tony doesn't remember this because she's kind of new anyway to Brant Point, but we've had Vince appear before the Brant Point Association annual meeting in the past, I think probably once or twice already, and he was well received, but more the merrier. So we can do it again with Leah. That's all.
Also, there's a survey that you can take, an online survey. See that?
Peter, that survey is closed.
Okay, it's closed.
Yep.
Okay. But, I would recommend that you speak more to Leah off after the meeting. She can help you out a lot. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I think we're good. We're going to move on to discussion and suggested edits for a financial letter to town administrator.
Peter, can I just ask a clarifying question? So
Yep.
Did the committee agree that we're going to be doing it quarterly for the downtown neighborhood
Yes.
flip year? Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, are you gonna put the letter up? Joanna, are you gonna say anything?
No. So Joanna is still working on the letter. So that needs to get moved to a different agenda if someone can make a motion.
I can. I move it to the next agenda.
So the February 11th.
That's fine.
Does that give you enough time, Joanna? February 11th?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, who seconded?
I did.
Okay.
Well, one of us.
All right. Okay, roll call vote. Gary Beller.
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Jennifer Carberg.
Aye.
Joanna Roach.
Aye.
Doug Rose.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Sarah Boyce.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Rachel Freeman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Before we go to number 8, there's a member of the public who has his name there as Greg. And for the benefit of our secretary, could you either say your last name or change your name so we know who you are? Because we make note of all the people who are attending in the meeting.
Yeah, no, Peter, Greg O'Brien. And
O'Brien.
O'Brien, I'm a consultant with NIR. I just wanted to listen and to educate myself more, so.
Okay, is that B-R-I-E?
O apostrophe B-R-I-E-N.
All right, thanks, Greg, I appreciate it.
No, thanks. How
Okay,
do I
so
get my last name on this thing? You know, when you get older, you don't get smart in computers.
you just sort of hover your cursor in where your photo is, and then you see the 3 dots at the top right, and click on that, and it should go down to the very bottom, and it says rename, and then you can do that.
Yeah, no, I just thought it's good for me to educate myself. Leah's doing a great job, so.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Greg. All right, number 8, new business committee and natural resources department reports from planning board, Concom, Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board, Select Board, Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers, and other committee members. Do we have any? Well, I guess I can update a little bit. The Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board is now going through the revising and amending of the shellfish regulations. That's one thing. And then as CRAC's representative to the Nantucket and Mattocket Harbors Action Plan Update Committee, I should report to you that a draft plan, a first draft of the harbor plan, the updated harbor plan exists. Our committee is going through that. It's going to get granular very soon, but I think by the end of March, we'll have a draft that'll be for the public to check out. Just wanted to let you know that process is moving along. Any other reports? Announcements? Go ahead, Jen.
Thanks, Pete. I just wanted to give an announcement because I think this happens before our next CRAC meeting, but Sunday, February 9th at, I think 5, but an announcement will go out. We're going to do a presentation at the Athenaeum of all of the graduate students and other people that have been doing research on our oyster reef and other coastal resilience research over the past 2 years. They're going to present what they've been working on and what that kind of means for the rest of our research. So just kind of I know it's Super Bowl Sunday. Sorry, we didn't realize it till after we scheduled it. But if you want to get some science in before football, we'll be at the Athenaeum that early evening.
I thought football was science.
Well, you know, maybe. There's science to it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, Jen. Okay, with seeing no other reports, no other. Oh, Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, just very briefly for anybody who's following this, the next meeting of CONCOM, it's a special meeting on SBPF and the town's project on Baxter Road, is February 13th at 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Doug.
Just a question maybe for Leah as to when we anticipate kicking off the work group with regarding land use regulations. Thanks.
Go ahead, Leah.
I contacted Megan Trudell and she said they're in the woes of town meeting figuring, you know, with the zoning and everything. So she said March, they would have some more time to be able to work with us. And then Peter, if I can give a quick update, 2 weeks ago, we had the second round of community open houses for the Francis Street Beach Improvement Project. And from those 2 meetings, we had over 125 community members participate. And the format was pretty immersive for being virtual. We had breakout rooms. I know some people prefer the in-person meetings, but you know, in our scope, we had virtual because of the time of year. a lot of the summer residents are not here, so we wanted to be able to include them in this meeting. It was recorded, it's on the project's website. And then we also had a feedback form where 75 people over 6 days filled that out. So that was really excellent information. I just want to thank everyone that attended and gave their feedback on that project.
Great, thank you, Leah. Okay, so discussion of upcoming meeting dates and topics. Next meeting is February 11th, 2025. I want to inform the committee that we've had some people, members of the public, requesting that we make our meetings open in-person meetings. And I guess I'll give it to Leah to explain why it works best for us to have Zoom meetings.
Thanks, Peter. So I just wanted to say that I think before the committee decides anything about changing the format of these meetings, we should wait until the state updates their provisions for the open meeting law. Right now, it doesn't dictate that the meetings need to be in person or hybrid, but on March 31st, the state will be reevaluating that provision and updating it. So we should wait until early April to discuss this. If they are moved to in-person or hybrid, the meeting space for town committees is very limited, and regulatory boards have the first say. So if they need to have a meeting, but we're supposed to have a meeting, we would get bumped. And then if we do maintain the meeting on Zoom, it would not be as disruptive as far as like having to change dates and times for the meetings. And I think it's the most efficient way to accommodate the committee members as well as the residents that might not be on island during the middle of the winter. So it really helps have community participation, and the town has seen that participation from the public has actually increased since we've gone to the Zoom format. So that's super important. Obviously, we want to hear from the community, and we want to discuss with the community around coastal resiliency stuff. So also with it being on Zoom, we can record it and then people can watch it after if they can't attend the meeting, and then I can set up a meeting with them to speak, directly to. So those are my points, but again, recommend that we wait until early April to have this discussion about changing the format.
All right, great, thanks, Leah. Go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, Peter, for letting me chime in. I just want to underline something that Leah just said. I know that at least 2 of the members of CRAC actually are seasonal residents, and so if there was an insistence on these being solely in person, I know that I would struggle to remain on the committee. I suspect Gary might feel the same way. I have no problem at all, obviously, with hybrid. I think that's great. I would advocate strongly for maintaining some form of Zoom participation. Thanks.
And I'll get to you in a minute, Matt. And it's super, super helpful when we need off-island expert advice to come in and talk to us. They don't have to come here and stay. You don't have to make, they can just do it from their office. So go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with Doug. It should be hybrid. I think we should meet in person once a month at some point. And I think the reason I feel that is there are things that we can do with a map and with people in a room and looking at each other in the eye that I think would be helpful gathering information. I'm fine waiting till April or May, but I think a hybrid format would give us the best of both worlds. Thanks.
And I tend to agree with you, Matt, but as long as we can get the space. We could say that we're going to do it, but then for whatever reason we get bumped and we're back to Zoom for 2 meetings a month or whatever. So we should definitely look into it. Okay. All right. Well, next meeting February 11th. February 10th, February 25th meeting has been canceled. And do we know when the next meeting is after that in March, Leah?
It will be March 11th.
Okay, so month between meetings. All right, well, if there's nothing else, take a motion to adjourn.
Peter?
Hold on,
Peter,
hold
it's
on, hold on. Gary?
I just want to say, as far as a future meeting is concerned, Leah mentioned that she is doing some work on her own or with some help from colleagues, I hope, on our number two priority. Number two priority, you know what it all is? It's the adaptation and retreat. And to the extent that, you make some progress on that, Leah, I'd love to see you put that on a meeting, in the near future. That's all. Number two priority.
All right, thanks, Gary. Leah?
Yeah, I just want to respond to Gary. So where I am in that process is I had to fill out a procurement request form. So that is submitted. It's town regulation stuff that you have to do. And then that needs to go out to bid. And then we need people to bid on it and evaluate their bids and then hire someone. So I can't really speak about it until after we hire. It's just how the law is around procurement. So I know, but when I can do it, I will absolutely update the committee.
It's clear, Peter, we need a DOGE for Nantucket, Department of Government Efficiency.
I appoint you, Gary.
Gary, it's a state thing. So
we need it for them too, right? Absolutely. It takes so long for us to get the state to approve all of the stuff that the annual town meeting approves anyway. We have to go back to them 3 or 4 times to get the ATM to approve it. It's quite, the state really does need a DOGE as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you, Leah. Deanne, did you have something to say?
Peter, yes. I apologize. I don't know where public comment is on the agenda. I can't access the agenda. So
Deanne, it's always at the top, always. It's always number 3.
Okay, I guess I missed that.
So I started the meeting off with that. So anyway, if you have something to add that is not on the agenda.
I do, and it's very brief.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that tomorrow night on the agenda for the county commission is discussion of an alternative access plan for Sheep Pond Road, including betterments. And I can't think of anything that's more relevant to what you're doing than that. I don't know if Leah or Vince or Matt want to comment on that. If not, we can just all watch tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thanks, Deanne. No comments. Vince?
I work on that project. It is best left to the county commissioners at the moment. And one way to approach this is to see if the county commissioners would need any assistance from Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee, but that's a commissioner's question.
All right, thank you, Vince. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll comment real quick. Yeah, we've done betterments in that area before, and we are fortunate in that area that it is dirt roads and not a lot of infrastructure, so the cost isn't that much money. So so I think that we may do the same thing, like Vince said. It's up to the county commissioners. It's up to the staff to make a recommendation. I don't know what that'll be, but we're dealing with it tomorrow.
All right, thank you, Matt. Okay. All right. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Gary, seconded by Matt. Roll call vote. Matt Fee.
Aye.
Gary Beller.
Aye.
Jen Carberg.
Aye.
Joanna Roach.
Aye.
David Iverson.
Aye.
Doug Rose.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Sarah Boyce.
I
I think we lost Rachel, and chair votes aye. All right, great meeting, you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the great comments and the observations. Let's keep it rolling.
bye.
Bye, Vince.